Welcome to The Explainer. Today, we're jumping right into a pretty incredible story. A 5-day revolt that absolutely sent shockwaves through the British Empire. It's all about faith, force, defiance, and you'll see it still echoes today.
So let's start with this question. How can just 25 men humiliate a global empire? I mean, it sounds impossible, right? But believe it or not, back in July 1945, that's exactly what happened. In a place called British Somaliland, a single charismatic scholar and his 25 followers managed to bring the entire colonial government to its knees.
Okay, so the whole thing kicks off on the night of July 3rd. Picture this, a small band of rebels launches this surprise attack on Burao, the colonial capital. And they weren't just hitting random targets. Nope, they went straight for the central prison, where political prisoners were held, and the home of the top British official in the whole region, the district commissioner.
And this raid, it wasn't some random act of chaos. It was a statement. It was the physical expression of this powerful idea, an idea driven by a man who believed that, when faith alone doesn't cut it, force becomes the only answer.
And that man's name was Sheikh Bashir. To really get what this 5-day war was all about, we've got to go back. We have to understand the decades of history and belief that led him straight to that night in Burao.
So who was this guy? Well, this is what's so fascinating. He was basically heir to a legacy of resistance, both in his blood and his beliefs. He was born in the heart of the Dervish resistance, and his uncle was its famous leader. So rebellion was literally in his DNA. He wasn't just some quiet scholar, he was a revolutionary waiting for his moment.
But still, what pushes a scholar, even one with a rebellious family tree, to declare open war on an empire? Well, believe it or not, it all started with a plague of locusts, and a so-called solution from the British that nobody trusted.
So, this British anti-locust campaign, where they were spreading poisoned bran all over the grazing lands, that was the final straw. But you have to understand, it landed on this huge pile of grievances that had been building up for years. We're talking forced disarmament, education policies people saw as an attack on their culture, and a whole history of tax revolts. The place wasn't just tense, it was a total powder keg, just waiting for a spark.
And here's the crucial point. This was never just about locusts. For the Somali people, this poison bait felt like a secret plot. It was seen as this existential threat, a plan to wipe out their livestock, their wealth, their entire way of life, all to make room for British settlers.
So, with that powder keg lit, the rebellion explodes. Now let's get into the timeline of how this 5-day war actually played out, and how Sheikh Bashir earned his legendary title.
For 5 straight days, this tiny unit of 25 men just completely outsmarted and outmaneuvered the British. They used these brilliant guerrilla tactics, operating from their base in the Bur Dhab mountains, and basically led the colonial forces on this wild goose chase. And the humiliation was so intense, so profound, that the administration came to this shocking conclusion. They either had to launch a full-scale, brutal occupation or abandon the entire interior of the country. That's the choice these 25 men forced on them.
And this really shows you the difference between his rebellion and his uncle's famous Dervish war. See, Sheikh Bashir wasn't trying to fight a 20-year war or build a new state. His rebellion was something else entirely. It was a lightning strike, a symbolic punch in the gut designed to humiliate the empire and hopefully spark a much larger popular uprising.
Well, the end finally came on July 7th. The British, absolutely desperate to crush this thing, brought in reinforcements from all over the empire. In the final, ferocious battle, Sheikh Bashir was killed, but he took the British general down with him. So the rebellion ended in martyrdom. But the way the British responded next, that would make sure Sheikh Bashir's story was far, far from over.
So, with the rebel leader dead, you'd think that would be the end of it. But no, the British administration wasn't satisfied. They decided they needed to make a brutal example of his clan, to crush any lingering thoughts of defiance for good.
And to really grasp just how devastating the British punishment was, you only need to hear one number: 6,000.
That's right, 6,000 camels. Now you have to understand, in a pastoral society like this, livestock is everything. It's your bank account, your livelihood, your entire measure of wealth. To put it in perspective, the price for a human life, what they call blood money, was exactly 100 camels. So seizing 6,000, this was a crippling economic blow aimed not just at the rebels, but at the entire community's ability to survive.
But the British didn't stop there. They went even further. They publicly mistreated Sheikh Bashir's body, reportedly denying him a proper burial. It was meant to be this ultimate act of public humiliation, but it completely, spectacularly backfired. Instead of erasing him, it transformed a fallen rebel into an immortal martyr.
Because, you see, while the British might have won the battle up in those mountains, the story of Sheikh Bashir was just beginning. It was about to be written into the very soul of a nation.
And a huge part of that was poetry. This powerful piece, written right after the rebellion by Haji Adan Ahmed Af-Qallooc, it just captured the spirit of the whole struggle. It was able to transform what looked like a military defeat into a moral victory, making sure that Sheikh Bashir's sacrifice would go on to inspire generations of people fighting for their freedom.
And that legacy isn't just poetic, it's real, it's tangible. You can see it today. His name is on schools and major cities. There are monuments being restored right now to inspire a new generation. There are even plans for an international airport named after him. And amazingly, his 5-day war is even credited with sparking whole new revolutionary styles of Somali music.
Which brings us all the way back to that first question we asked. How can a tiny 5-day rebellion, led by just 25 men, still resonate so powerfully almost a century later? Well, it's because the Lion of Bur Dhab, as he became known, proved something absolutely crucial. He proved that the size of your army matters way less than the power of your idea, an idea of defiance that simply could not be killed, and a legacy that could never be buried.